Welcome back, y'all. This is Seasoned Voices, where flavor meets life's hardest stories. And I'm your host, Tara.
And I'm Rora, your young college student.
And I'm Jay.
Tonight, buckle up, family. We're traveling to South Africa for a case that feels like fiction, but every piece of it is chillingly real. This is the story of a cult named Electus Produce, chosen by God, a group that believed they were divinely ordained to kill, or divinely ordained to kill. And under the manipulative leadership of Cecilia Stein, they would take 11 lives over 4 years.
Before the murders, before the fear, everything begins with one woman, Cecilia Stein. She claimed she was a former Satanist turned chosen warrior of God and was born to stop evil. She basically claimed that demons were coming for her every night and she needed protection, money, loyalty, and obedience.
All that sounds like manipulation. Cecilia had a talent for creating crises only she could solve. She convinced people she had supernatural insight, that she was in spiritual warfare 24/7.
And people believed her, and that's the scariest part. That wasn't just a cult. This was a family she built from vulnerability, fear, and devotion. Around 2012, a small circle formed around Cecilia, who she had handpicked one by one. She chose 2 that were broken people, isolated and searching for purpose. She called the group Electus Produce, chosen by God. Of course, Cecilia positioned herself as the prophet, their leader, and their only path to righteousness.
Really? She was the puppet master. She pulled strings through fear, gaslighting, and this deep spiritual manipulation. People truly believe God was sending them missions.
And those missions become murders.
The murders began with people Cecilia viewed as threats, members of a Christian ministry called Overcomers Through Christ, essentially those who had distanced themselves from her. Okay, so let me give you guys a little background on what happened between Cecilia and the Overcomers Through Christ group. The first step was infiltration. Cecilia Stein met with Ria Grunwald in 2007. Sten then convinced Grunwald and the OTC group that she was a former high-ranking Satanist who had escaped the church and needed deliverance from constant demonic attacks. Grunwald, whose organization assisted people escape in occultism, took Cecilia under her wing. Stein then used this position to change the group's focus to an active war against Satan and began to manipulate members with stories of danger, ritual abuse, and over time, Grunwald began to suspect that Sten's stories were lies and drew away from her. It was this betrayal by Grunwald that deeply angered Stein, leading Stein to form her own splinter group, Electus Pure, chosen by God. They targeted Grunwald and her associates for revenge.
Cecilia didn't like being abandoned, so she turned her group against them. So while Grunwald was the primary target of Stain's rage, the cult's members' actions would include Grunwald receiving threatening messages, and her life was turned upside down. Her passport disappeared, and a website was created to drag her name through the mud, making it difficult for her to find a job or to be trusted. There were also car bombings. Cecilia cult planted bombs at one of the meetings, damaging several cars.
Victims were stabbed, strangled, or beaten. 3 people linked to the group were murdered in 2012 in retaliation for the falling out. Natasha Berger, which is a close friend of Grunwald, murdered in July 2012. Joyce, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Boonzire, Berger's neighbor, was murdered at the same time. Pastor Reginald Bendixson, an elderly pastor and friend of Grunwald, was attacked and hanged to death in his home in August 2012. But these weren't random attacks. They were targeted, mapped out, and executed with planning that looked almost military level.
That's crazy. Think about it like this. 11 people died because one woman convinced a group of people to do that. That God wanted blood. It's crazy.
After the revenge killings, the motive shifted. Celia now needed money, and her followers were willing to kill for it. The appointment murders, which occurred primarily in the year 2016, involved the Curtis Group cult members luring their victims to fake business meetings, primarily for financial gain, rather than the earlier revenge-driven motives. Victims were lured with promises of meetings, business deals, or even spiritual help, just to be ambushed. The cult, now driven by financial desperation and Cecilia Stein's demands for money, developed a calculated method to carry these murders out. Miranda Stein, the mother of the Stein siblings, and LaRue Stein would pose as clients and set up appointments with various professionals such as insurance brokers, financial consultants, real estate agents. And then minutes before that scheduled meeting would happen, always at a public location like a restaurant or something, the victims were called and rerouted to one of the cult's apartments in the Kosana complex and crew described under his false pretense. The last minute change was intended to confuse investigators tracking the victims' movements. Once they were inside the flat, the victims were held at gunpoint, often with a 38 special revolver, forced to lie down, and their bank card pins were demanded while the victim was held captive. Another cult member, usually Marshall Stein or either John Bernard, would go to an ATM to verify that the PIN number was actually correct, and then they withdrew as much possible as they could from that victim's account. After the money was secured, the victims were typically strangled or bludgeoned to death. Their bodies were then disposed in various ways to delay their discovery and possible identification. We had Anthony Schofield, a tax consultant, Kevin McAlpine, 29, an insurance broker who was married and whose wife was pregnant at the time of his murder. Their bodies were placed in the boots of their own cars, which were then abandoned in areas known for high crime and drug activity, and hoped that the cars and bodies would be stolen. So another layer to cover up what they were doing. Hanny Langtigan, a real estate agent whose body was transported in Miranda Stein's car and dumped in a field near the Randin Fontaine River. All these names.
Wow. And the worst part, they documented plans like it was an operation. Who distracts? Who attacks? Who drives? Who burns evidence?
So
This isn't a chaotic cult. This was a well-oiled machine running on delusion and fueled by manipulation.
So by 2016, the pattern became too noticeable. The police linked the murders by method and connection to the same social circles. The police investigation into these murders, which initially appeared to be a string of unrelated serial killings, led them back to the earlier satanic murders from 2012, eventually exposing the entire cult.
The crucial breakthrough would come from clear CCTV footage at ATMs where money was withdrawn using the victim's bank card from the 2016 murders. This footage clearly showed a man and a woman, later identified by an informer as siblings LaRue and Marcel Stein. Police quickly located and arrested the Stein siblings, LaRue and Marcel. This was the first major break in the case. LaRue turned state witness, and during questioning, LaRue and Stein confessed to their involvement in the 2016 murders and critically agreed to become state witness in exchange for a plea deal. Their chilling testimony opened the case wide open, linking the recent financial gain murders to the earlier revenge-motivated killings in the cult's mastermind, Cecilia Stein. Their confession, along with the police work, led to the arrest of the other cult members. Miranda Stein, mother of LaRue and Marcel, a farmer, teacher, and key participant. Zach Valentine, a financial broker. And of course, Cecilia Stein, the manipulative leader and mastermind who has successfully kept her own hands clean of the physical acts. LaRue's testimony provided the links between the seemingly unrelated cases, revealing that all 11 murders were planned and executed by the same group under Cecilia's orders. And that's when the cracks formed. Members turned on each other. Interrogation exposed jealousy, betrayal, and guilt. Some even referred to Cecilia as a queen who demanded obedience.
So eventually, through confessions and digital evidence, the entire cult unraveled. Cecilia Stein, the so-called prophet, was exposed as a manipulator using fear and fantasy to control lives of others. These arrests led to one of South Africa's most sensational trials. The members were tried and found guilty on multiple charges. They included murder, fraud, and racketeering. LaRue's testimony was vital in securing those convictions, and he received a reduced sentence of 25 years as a part of his plea deal.
In 2019, the group was sentenced for the 11 murders. The other convicted members of the Electus cult received different sentences. So, Marcelle Stein, her daughter, was sentenced to 7 life sentences. Though she was a teenager and when some of the crimes were committed, she was heavily manipulated by Cecilia. But oh well, 7 life sentences. Zach Valentine, on the other hand, the financial broker, was sentenced to 8 life sentences. 2 members who received lighter sentences after turning state witnesses were LaRue Stein, the son. He was sentenced to an effective 25 years in prison after his plea bargain and testimony against the others. He took this as opposed to facing multiple life sentences. John Bernard was sentenced to 20 years after his plea deal and testimony. He has since died in prison back in September 2023 of natural causes. Cecilia, the mother and the mastermind, was sentenced to 13 life sentences plus an additional 115 years for the other charges, which included fraud, racketeering, and robbery. Damn, that's a lot of years. So, of course, who wouldn't? She took a plea deal and she pled guilty to the 11 murders.
The exposure of a seemingly ordinary group of people committing such horrific acts in the name of a self-proclaimed satanic battle shocked the community and gained national and international media attention, eventually inspiring the popular documentary series Devil's Dorp.
Now we've come to the part that we never skipped here on Seasoned Voices. The why.
People join cults because they're weak? Nah, that's not it.
People join cults because they're human, because they're lonely, hurting, searching for meaning. Cecilia, she just weaponized their vulnerability.
And that's the true horror here. A cult isn't just one leader. It's a community of people who want to belong, and one person willing to exploit that need of wanting to belong. Well, thank you all for staying with us through this heavy one. The Krugerstrap killings. They remind us what power, manipulation, and blind faith can turn into.
So always question the person who tells you only they have the truth.
And always protect your mind, your heart, and your peace.
All right. We'll see y'all next week for another deep dive. So stay safe, stay aware, and stay seasoned.